What it do, Mark Henry here with the Platform Under the Lights podcast. We're back for another week of exciting wrap up of high school football from the state of Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Shout out to my guy Ben Spicer, who's on the road this week. We got my boy Drew back in the building, man. We're gonna talk some Florida high school football. First of all, Drew, shout out to you and your fam. You made it through. With Milton coming through. Talk about that a little bit and how you guys are doing down there.
Man, Mark is glad. I'm just glad to be back. You feel me? Us Floridians out here, we 2-0 against Hurricane. We had Hurricane Helene come through, or Helene, however you want to say it, and then Milton came through on that West Coast, come through all the way up Central Florida. So it threw a lot of games off, a lot of scheduling issues going on. But the FHSAA has been doing the most to get these games right. So I'm just ready to go. You know what I'm saying? Just glad to be back on the sidelines. Glad to be back here talking with you, brother.
Absolutely, man. Listen, there's a lot of people out there still needing help and things, man, and a lot of great people coming from other states to still
Right.
help the state of Florida out, man. And shout out to all you guys that have made it through. And let's talk a little ball, man. First off, man, I'll start it off. Big matchup that I saw this week in 11-6A. The Waxahachie Indians take down Cedar Hill. That was an interesting matchup
Mm,
in that district. Now, Duncanville's clearly at the top. They beat DeSoto the other week and they beat Lancaster this week as well.
mm,
They're the top dogs in that district, but two, three, and four is going to be a dogfight. And we'll start with Waxahachie. Talked about their quarterback, 2027 quarterback Jerry Meyer the third in the past, and he's starting to come into his own. 202 yards passing and a touchdown. Wade Lemons also rushes for two scores as they get the big victory over Cedar Hill,
mm,
24-13. Now in that district, it shakes out like we talked about. Duncanville's undefeated, 6-0. DeSoto's 3-1. Lancaster's 3-1. Cedar Hill and Waxahachie are both tied at 2-2. So it's going to come out to those guys. In the next few weeks, you got 3 games left in the season. It's going to come out to shape out to who's going to get those particular victories. Now, Waxahachie this week has Skyline, which is a very good team. It'll be an interesting matchup, but I think that Waxahachie's defense is one of the, especially on the defensive line, is several players that have stood out. They played well this year. Cade Pointer is a guy that you need to know about, as well as Jacob Irving as well. He's a standout. He's a senior down there, big defensive tackle. He's got some, a couple of offers here: Texas A&M Commerce, East Central, a few small Division II schools. But this guy really pushes the pocket, and Pointer's a guy that pushes it from the edge as well as Carmelo Clausen, who's one of the best 2027 edge gushers that you'll find definitely in the state of Texas. But this is one of those games that you found out, really who's going to be the creme de la creme at the end. Now, Cedar Hill was a deep playoff team last year, and they're really on the cusp of doing some things. Just hadn't been able to get that consistency to score points. Defensively, they've been there. So, hey, this is one of those games that you gotta look at as, hey, these guys know what's on tap and what's on stake, what's at stake. Shout out to Coach Tollison, and the Waxahachie Indians. They get the big victory. And I'm going to talk about a couple players before I toss it to you, Drew.
mm-hmm.
I really want to talk about Capel quarterback Edward Griffin. He's a Baylor commit. We've seen Edward Griffin playing with Team Grind the last couple of years on the DR7 circuit. But he had a great game against Louisville, 55-28, 460 yards, passes, 6 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns.
Mm,
And Capel's one of those teams that I really think has a chance to make a deep playoff run. They're in the 5-6A district with Geyer, Louisville, Flower Mound, and Hebron. Those are probably the 5 schools that you'll be looking for to come out as playoff teams. They've already taken care of Geyer. They take care of Louisville. Now, the next 3 weeks, they have Braswell, Flower Mound, and Flower Mound Marcus. Now, the Flower Mound and Flower Mound Marcus, as well as Braswell, could be tough opponents, but I really think that at this point, Griffin's really that guy that's spinning it. He's one of the best 2025 quarterbacks in the state. He's been
mm,
leveling up each week. He's been consistent, and he's the catalyst to get those guys going. I know we've been talking about, Duncanville and Keelan Russell for the last couple of weeks, but I really think Griffin's making a case right behind Russell's that next quarterback in the state of Texas in 2025 class as the guy that's really doing it big. I mean, there's a reason that he's starting to pick up some motion when it comes to recruiting. Baylor's already been on
mm,
him. He's committed to Baylor. So if he continues to stay with Baylor. Baylor got a big win yesterday in the Big 12 over Texas Tech at home. So I thought that bode well for their recruiting as well. And to keep a guy like Griffin, they're going to have to continue to win. Of course, Taz Williams Jr. is committed there as well. So he'll have a nice piece to throw in the 2025 class to those guys. But I really think that Edward Griffin's a guy that's really starting to separate himself from the pack along with Keelan Russell. But Griffin has done it. We've seen him do it on the 7-on-7 circuit, and he's been doing it in pads as well for the last 3 years as a starter over Capel, and they're a state-ranked team. But I'll let you go ahead and start talking about Florida, and then I'll tell you where after we get done. I'll tell you where I'm going this week as we're heading to week 8.
I appreciate that, Mark, man. We heading into week 10 out here in Florida. We've been battling bad weather, hurricanes, you know what I mean, at all. But, there's been some good games, continuing. We started off earlier in the season with South Florida, having some powerhouses coming down, and that kind of translated up to Central Florida here in the mid-season. So it's been good games throughout the state, but is it just me, dog? Is the season flying by? You know what I mean? It's like already
It's
about to
it's
be
it's going at a rapid pace. I mean, it's it
it's like
seems like
already
we
heading
were
into
just in
playoffs already.
August. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, it seemed like we were just in August and going into two-a-days, and now we're
man.
mid-season now. So I mean, you got
Yeah,
to get
yeah.
in where you fit in because it's going by.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, week 10, the season's flying by. It's getting closer to these, we've been in the midst of district games, which has been turning up. So the intensity's been turning up. But I caught, one of the top 9 district games here in the Central Florida area this week with the First Academy hosting Seminole Bokie. You know what I mean? Bokie took a loss last week to Lake Mary. So I thought it was going to come in here. Well, they did come in with a chip on their shoulder. But the First Academy's got something, man. I just got to give a shout out to them and their coaching staff. Let's kind of break down the game a little bit. So, first of all, it was one of those, up and coming squads with the First Academy. They're 1A team, they won district, but they're going against a juggernaut in Seminole, man. 3 stars around the board, 4 stars on the team on both sides of the ball. So this is one of the powerhouse coaching staffs and programs in that area. But the First Academy is on the rise, man. As I had one of the kids on my show on the rundown this week, Solomon Georges. He's the CEO, the quarterback of that team, 2025 quarterback. Had a hell of a game, you know what I mean? So shouts out to him, but I gotta give a shout out to that offensive line. Offensive line woke me, waking people up. They got Chancellor Barclay, a 4-star guy, but Noah Devine, man, this is another kid that deserves the spotlight. And they got
Yep.
some other kids. Yeah, Noah Devine, shouts out to him, gave him a spotlight on social media this week. His quarterback gave him the spotlight as well. So they got a solid offensive line. They got skilled players on both sides of the ball. So let's break down some of those standouts in the game, Mark. I got to start off with 2025 running back Dane Tompkins, man. This kid has been the bell cow throughout his high school campaign, man. He's over at TFA now, but it started at Lake Mineola. Like even before he got to TFA, he was running that thing hard. I don't know what's up with recruiting going on, but these coaches out here be sleeping, man. It's a hotbed. It's oversaturated. Some of these FIUs, FAUs, USF should have been pulled the trigger on some of these kids. But that's the name of the game when it comes to scouting and recruiting, man. But shouts out to Dane Tompkins, 2025. He had 3 rushing touchdowns, just running through the gaps, breaking it outside all night. That offensive line was opening holes. He was hitting it hard. So he's a downhill runner, but he can also get shifty when he needs to, too. But he's got good size, can block as well, and also can catch out the backfield as well. That's one of the big components of running backs. If you're not able to block and you're not able to catch out the backfield, man, your lifespan is going to be short on some of these rosters. Also, 2025 wide receiver Evan James and 2026 wide receiver Demetrius McCray. These two led the receiving corps. They kind of make up that duo tandem over at TFA. These kids are electric, man. 2025 Evan James, he's a stud. But 2020 the McCray kid, I had him on the top 2026 wide receiver list. He's the real deal. You know what I mean? Talking with my guy Dan LaForest out there, he believes people around that area believes this kid is the real deal. Definitely has Power 5 potential. But Evan James, like I said, he's one of the top wide receivers on that team, but he also had a game-sealing INT, Mark. That was huge to me just to see him be a dog on both sides of the ball. I didn't really know he could play DB like that, but at the prep level, man, you're a wide receiver. You can flip your hips a little bit, use your hands. You can play DB a little bit. So just to highlight Seminole, man, I know they was trying to shake back with things what happened with Lake Mary. Shout out to my guy, 3-star quarterback, 2026, Michael Clayton. He's got offers around the board from a lot of these SEC programs and Power Four programs, but he's battling some injuries. Mark, he took some time. I don't even think he played last week. Last week against Lake Mary, but they were rotating him and another kid this week. Which they have a dual threat quarterback. He works with Balin Trujillo as well, but he's still coming into his time. You know what I mean? He's not all the way ready. He's having to run around a lot. You know how it is with some of these young quarterbacks. You guys watch college football, just watching Arch Manning, watching Florida State, Luke Kromenhawk. Young quarterbacks, you know, they tend to use their legs a lot, and they tend to put their eyes down really quick. You know what I mean? They don't go through their progressions as much, and they don't look for their 1 and 2 reads. So if they're off that one read, it's pretty much over with. They're running the ball. So a lot of these young quarterbacks are going to have to get over that. He's one of them. But Michael Clayton's dealing with, I don't know what injury he's dealing with, but he didn't play as much, and he threw that last interception to kind of seal the game. So those are my standouts, Mark. But definitely player of the game, Solomon Georges, 2025 quarterback, deserves a spotlight, and running back 2025 running back Dane Tompkins, man. Noah Maddox, can't forget about Noah Maddox, linebacker. On the defensive side, and Aiden Hall tackling everything moving. Or that kid's electric, dog.
Absolutely, man. Shout out to all those guys in the state of Florida. Trying
Yeah,
to get it out the mud. I mean, literally, Florida is one of the most talented places to find talented athletes in the state
yeah,
in the country, really. Because a
yeah,
lot of times, these big schools they come down and get those Florida DBs. They come down and get those Florida receivers,
yeah,
those Florida edge rushers and linebackers. Those guys that can really run.
yeah,
And you see that going across the country. Us getting a chance to go around the state of Florida, me coming from Texas, to be able to scout and see those guys. You really see that happening now. And
yeah.
as you see as the seasons start to progress, you start to see these guys start to develop and flourish. Talk about that a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah, man. My thing is, like you said, Florida, you can come here and find a skilled, talent kid on the corner. You know what I mean? It's not really hard to find one. A dog. Like I was telling my lady, man, Florida breeds dog mentality. Like these kids, man, from growing up, I can tell you, Mark, like it's competitive out here, man. Like I look better than you. I'm faster than you. You know what I mean? I get more girls than you. I can do everything better than you. So that kind of breeds that competitive dog-like mentality here in Florida. But yeah, man, as the season picks up, as kids get more reps, you know what I mean? As kids get more chemistry with their team, they start settling down. The game starts slowing down a little bit. But I'm just excited to see some of these quarterbacks pick it up, man. We talk about the skill talent that's been going before my time, you know what I mean? But this quarterback class, this 2026 quarterback class, is probably the best we've seen in some time, just from top to bottom. Just from Brady Hart, out of Coco, Lake Mary, Noah Grubbs, Darion Coleman at Jones, and you got Dia Bell, the Texas commit down there, American Heritage. He's looking really good, man. I know there was some talks about him being in that 1 or 2 spot, 3 maybe, but dude, if you look at his stats and some of the teams that American Heritage is playing right now, that's top notch. Their strength of schedule is solid, right? Even though they don't have the best schedule, but yeah, man, the skill talent is here, dog. It's definitely here. That's why I said it gets oversaturated. A lot of these schools from out of state come in and pick some of these kids up out there in Kentucky, Ohio. You know what I mean? Where they can see some of this Florida speed, this Texas speed. Their eyes pop wide open, but yeah, man, more development happens as the game slows down and more kids get reps or in-game reps, brother.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at college football and you saw it yesterday across the board. The
Yeah,
Louisvilles, the Kentuckys, like you mentioned, they come
yeah,
to get those kids. Ohio
yeah,
State's been famous for that. Alabama as well. And I think that's what's the unique thing about the Florida talent that I get a chance to see as well. And I think you see it happen on Saturday nights as well, even
yeah.
going across to the West Coast. It's
Yeah,
been stamped and proven. You know what I mean?
yeah. Some of these, I guess, states are starting to get known for certain things, but Florida is definitely a hotbed for skilled talent. You go out to Texas, I feel like you can find anything in Texas, but I don't know, man. You guys got a lot of size out there. You guys be huge. Them offensive linemen be huge, man. You see
Yeah,
the kid out
yeah,
in
yeah.
DeSoto. I don't know. We got
Absolutely.
offensive linemen like that here. You know, California is the quarterbacks, pretty boys out there at Cali, man. We got to get a
Right.
Cali guy on here. Get some perspective of
Absolutely.
that. That California high
Absolutely.
school ball is lit too, man. I would love to hear
Yeah.
somebody talk about that out there. But can't sleep
Absolutely.
on Georgia, man. Georgia's definitely a hotbed. You can find anything in Georgia, man. You can find a hard hitter, running back, quarterback, whatever you need. And those sleeper states like Alabama and Mississippi and Louisiana, man, those
Right.
states right there, speed, hard hitters, dogs, everything you need. So the South, man, ain't nothing to
Yeah.
play with. We ain't nothing to play with.
That's the reason the Southeastern Conference has been on top for a long time. You know, you can see
Yeah.
the proof in the pudding. Look at Georgia coming and thumping Texas last night. You know, we're getting
Dang,
off the subject with college football, but
nah,
Georgia,
we
they
good,
came
man.
and dominated the trenches, and you see the talent that they have. Look at what Tennessee did. You see the talent that they have. But that's another show in itself. We'll definitely be here 3 or 4 hours if
No.
we get to
Before
talking
you go,
about it.
Mark, before you go,
Absolutely.
man, you college football fans, we're starting to see, right? I think last night was a big thing of developing kids, right? Hold on, my cat's trying to come through. Developing kids and not overusing the transfer portal, right? A lot of those kids are dogs and that understands the Georgia tradition. They had a chip on their shoulder. They've been at the top for a minute, but you can just tell, man, they had the doubt in them. Kirby Smart snapping after the game. Man, you need those type of kids to build a program, man. That's what it's coming down to recruiting now. Transfer portal's killing some of these programs. Shouts out to Manoles. That's all I'm gonna say.
Well, that's a whole nother show in itself, and we talk about those type of things. We'll have to give
Yeah.
them a rundown on that one
Man, we
night.
gotta have a college show,
A-
man. If y'all like college, man,
Absolutely.
comment down below if y'all want to hear some college stuff, man. Mark's
Like,
out there.
like, and
Come on,
like and
dog.
subscribe. Like and subscribe. Comment on the platform Under
Yeah,
the Lights podcast, and
yeah.
we will put you in the mix. You know what I'm
You
saying? We'll get
feel
you
me?
right. You know what I
Hey,
mean?
we'll have some of those college fans on. We'll bring some of y'all up. Y'all want to talk? Y'all want to get rowdy? Let's do it, man. I want
Let's
to have
do
an
it, man.
interactive show if we could too. That'd be lit, man.
Absolutely. Listen, nothing more exciting than college football. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And
yeah,
that's what the guys on this level are trying to reach and achieve is to get to that level of college football. And it starts under the lights with the Under Lights
yeah.
podcast. But let's move into this week. I got the big game in the state this week. Been talking
Uh-oh.
about it for a couple of weeks. North Shore, Atascocita. Two
Oh,
top five teams in the state of Texas going down Friday in H. Let's talk about it. The tail of the tape, if you want to call it that. Let's talk
yeah.
about North Shore first. They've been 2 6 state championship appearances. They've won three. They've been back to back. They lost to the Duncanville the last 2 years. I think that this is the year, and I had a chance to see them game one, week one against South Oak Cliff. I think that Caleb Bailey is back. He's going to be the reason that these guys take that extra step. He is playing at a phenomenal level, being able to run and throw and lead that offense. DeAndre Hardiman Jr. at the running back position, a Rice commit, is playing great. That offensive line is playing great. And then you got Devin Sanchez on the other side, one of the
Oh
top cornerback, Ohio State commit
yeah.
in the country. This is going to be a monumental task for Atascocita. They haven't been able to get over the hump in the last 5 years. This is the
Mm,
fourth time in 5 years that they've had to play these guys for the district title. And you got to go around to the regional final when Atascocita's
mm.
face North Shore again. North Shore's knocked them out of the playoffs.
Wow.
If they don't run into North Shore in these couple of years span, it's a possibility they could have won at
They
least
win.
two state titles in Coach Craig Stump and Atascocita's history.
So these
This
teams
is
be
the
knocking
big
each
game.
other out every year, right, Mark?
They knock each other out when it comes. Well, it's been North Shore knocking
It's
them
been
out,
North Shore knocking them out, but
knocking
they
the
can't get over that
Atascocita
hump.
out.
They can't get up.
They
If
can't
we
get
we
over
beat
that
these
hump.
guys, we can't go to the top.
They can't get over that hump. And these schools are probably separated by 10 miles or so. They're on the same side of
Oh
town. The
wow.
kids know each other. But if anybody's going to get it done, it's Atascocita, led by Torrey Blaylock, Corday Mack, Broderick Malone, and those guys on the offensive side. Corday Mack's been playing quarterback this year. He's a top running back in the class 2026, but he's been taking snaps. And it's a reason that they've been succeeding and been doing well is because they got Mack and Blaylock on the field at the same time. And that gives them an
Mm,
extra threat running as well. But Mack's been able to complete big passes as well. It's
okay.
at Atascocita
Mm,
Friday night in Houston.
mm,
It's probably going to be sold out now. Atascocita played Summer Creek about 2 weeks ago, and it was 9,600 fans at that. I
wow.
imagine it's going to push 10,000 or more over
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
going to
yeah.
be it's going to be standing room only. You're going to have people looking outside of the fence. It's going to be
Yeah.
bananas. This is the big game in the state this week. This is going to decide the district championship as well in this district. These two juggernauts meet It's going to be electric. I expect it to be some points put up in this game. It's going to be very close. But if anybody can beat North Shore before they started going to the playoffs, it's Atascocita. Atascocita's going on the road and beating Westlake at home. They beat Katy on the road. They beat Summer Creek a couple of weeks ago, which was in the state finals against DeSoto last year. So this is the time that if the football gods are aligned correctly, this is the time that Atascocita has to do it. If they can't take care of business here, I don't know when they're going to beat North Shore, because this is the perfect storm, perfect opportunity. But North Shore defensively is one of the best teams in the state. Now, it's not just Devin Sanchez. They got several guys on that defense that can play well. Chase Calicut is one of the top defensive backs in the class of 2026. Charles Ross, LSU commit, and linebackers playing well. So these guys are loaded. They understand what the business is, and they are focused on trying to get back to state. This is the best I've seen North Shore look in a couple of years.
Mm,
Last year they played well against competition until they got to the state championship against DeSoto. I mean, against, excuse me, Duncanville, and it was just, it wasn't even close. They were Duncanville beat them
yeah.
by a couple of touchdowns. If they're
Wow.
going to do it this year, they're loaded. Cedric Henderson's coming off the edge as well for the North Shore. Big game down in age. We'll definitely be in the building, and we'll come back next Sunday, and I'll give you all the updates and all the tea from that particular game.
He give y'all the rundown on that game, you know what I
The
mean?
rundown, no doubt.
Man, Mark been getting blessed with these games, man. He done had the top national game in Dallas. Now he's got the top national game, the must-watch game in Houston. So, hey,
Absolutely,
Mark's been giving y'all what y'all need to see. So, shouts out to my brother. I don't got
absolutely.
that big of a game, you know what I mean? But I'm definitely gonna catch Lakeland's hosting. Lakeland's back. Lakeland been off for 2 weeks now. They undefeated. They talking crazy, man. And dropped them a couple ranks because they ain't played in a couple weeks. But they 6-0. They'll be hosting Specially Fit Academy. Especially Fit is 6-1. You know what I mean? They won majority of their games, but they haven't played nobody like the Dreadnoughts. But I'm eager to see what they do, just to give a few kids on their team a shout out. Their running back Wesley Gibson is leading the team, averaging 116 rushing yards. Jadis Wiley, quarterback, throwing over 200 passing yards a game. Mark. So their offensive line's got to be something solid, right? Giving them time to throw that ball. With Devontae Inman averaging almost 100 receiving yards a game. So I'm excited to see what they do. I haven't seen their kids in person, but when you take a look at this Dreadnoughts team, man, from top to bottom, this is a state championship team. These kids are and coaching staff is on a mission to three-peat, man. They haven't three-peated since you Lakeland fans will know these Chris Rainey and Pouncey twin days, right? You Florida Gator fans, Steelers and Dolphins, man, the Pouncey twins. Those were when those teams were elite. When I was a kid coming up, man, those teams traveled across the country, played national games. So I think this Lakeland team definitely has those aspirations to three-peat. When you take a look at the team, man, it starts with Shenard Clower, man. We've been talking about this kid a couple times. Just lion-hearted, man. A Gidget gadget piece you can put over the field, all over the field, plays both sides of the ball, and he has a chance to be the special teams player of the year in Polk County, man. Just a kid you want on your sidelines and not on the other. But Xander Smith, got to give him a shout out. North Dakota State commit. He's a solid quarterback. Been knowing him for a while. Everybody in Florida knows him. He's big size kid, 6'4", 220, 230 size kid. Just to watch him transition to Lakeland and put it together has been solid. So, but you can't go without talking about Malik Morris, 2026 linebacker Malik Morris. Power 5 kid, Mark. You can put him at any state, any team. This kid will definitely stand out. Tackles anything moving. The ref better not move the wrong way, Mark. You know what I'm saying? Or he'll get tackled. But this kid is a monster. Can put him at fullback. Nobody wants to tackle him. Just a mean, athletic kid that can play both sides of the ball. But he'll definitely play NFL ball at linebacker. I'm telling you that right now. I got of course Keon Young as well, Ole Miss commit, DB, defensive back. Had a pick six the last time the Dreadnoughts took the field. He's been playing the defensive back, the cornerback position this year. I feel like he can thrive at safety, man. Kind of a 6'2", 6'3", long kid with good burst. You know what I mean? Had a kind of a burst INT, making a read on the quarterback. You know how it be, Mark, when you kind of sit back right there in that zone, kind of like you're playing man, disguise it, and he throws that comeback route, and you just burst on it and take it to the crib, man. So definitely a high IQ kid. Ole Miss is getting a good one. Hopefully they could keep him, man. I know they're trying to push for him out here. So just a good game I'll be watching out here in the Polk County area. Excited to see the Lakeland come back after a couple weeks off, been dealing with hurricanes and whatnot. But they're 2-0 against Miami-Dade. You know what I mean? The schedule hasn't been the toughest. Lakeland gets a lot of slack about that, but they should beat up everybody here heading into the playoffs, Mark.
Absolutely, man. It's the playoff stretch. We got 3 games left, including the games this week. So it's
Yeah.
it's do or die time. It's starting to shape out. You'll start to see the cream rise to the top in these districts. Here in the state of Texas, the top 4 teams record wise go to the playoffs, and then they
Oh,
they divide off after that. So it's one of those things where it's starting to get really hectic.
yeah.
Teams are starting to really show their hand as far as if they're ready to make that playoff push, if they're ready to make that playoff run.
Yeah, really quick, Mark. If there's any teams in the state of Florida, I want to give a shout out to, man, because these rankings and other people have been ranking them. So many other services have been putting out rankings where you get mixed up, right? You got Max Preps, you got us, you got other people. So, but shouts out to Armwood, man. Armwoods is still undefeated, man. They got a solid team on both sides of the ball. Starts with Gerard Pringle, Miami commit running back. Nobody's been able to beat them, man. So I got to give a shout out to them. Jones High School, Darion Coleman, they're still undefeated. So I got to give a shout out to them. They're definitely pushing for a state championship, man, in that Central Florida area. So I just wanted to talk about some of these teams that's still undefeated that deserve the spotlight. Chaminade, Madonna. I started off rough, but I think they've beaten everybody up since they played, taking down St. Thomas Aquinas. I think they beat Miami Norland, and of course, shouts out to Miami Central, man. They just beat Miami Norland this weekend. They're 6-1, haven't lost since taking a loss to the Dreadnoughts to start the season. So I just wanted to recap a couple of teams. Shouts out to them. And before we head out, I'll let you go. But I do want to talk about the platform list, man. We gave you guys a platform list, a preseason to start the season off. I really think it's time for an update. It might not be the same way we did it to start the season, especially with the quarterbacks. Those were a top 10 especially for me, right? I definitely want to give a shout out to kids on our list that deserves the spotlight, who are being productive, whether it's throughout the month or throughout the midway through the season. But that preseason quarterback list for me, Mark, was a top 10, right? And where I can move it up and down. But if we do an update, man, we've been talking back and forth, me and Mark. We want to put out something to where a lot of these kids weren't on my list, especially with these running backs. We'll talk about it here in a second. But a lot of these kids weren't on my list that are leading the state right now in rushing yards. And some of them got some crazy touchdown numbers, pushing for 20 touchdowns here. So I want to give a spotlight to them. And so you guys be looking out for some updated lists here coming on social media, man. Make sure you guys are following the platform DR on all social medias from Instagram and X. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, I think those lists were just a preseason list of guys that to look out for. It wasn't really necessarily ranking them, so to
Yeah,
speak. It's guys that you need to look out for. Well, now
yeah,
when it comes from my perspective, I want to give some guys some shout outs and some limelight, and some exposure that didn't have that at the beginning, because there's been some guys around the state that have jumped on people's radar,
yeah,
definitely, that weren't on people's radar, and that's the kind of thing that we're doing at the platform. Is we want to expose the unexposed. We want to put the shine, and we want to give the exposure to guys who are starting to dominate, that weren't on everybody's list before. And we're going to do that towards the end of the month, and we'll be dropping that here in the next few days. So look out for that. Definitely shout out to the platform and the Other
yeah,
Lights podcast for bringing that out. But speaking of teams that's undefeated, I wanted, before we get out of here, I wanted to talk about the
yeah.
Saginaw Rough Riders.
Ooh,
Listen, they're having their best. They're having their best season in years ever.
there
Seven
you
and
go.
zero. They got a big victory over Pasco, 39-31. They're on top of District 458 Division One.
Yeah,
Didn't know anything about Saginaw. Historically, they have not been a very good program. But
yeah,
talking to people around, this is a team that's really doing well. I'm going to try to see them in a couple of weeks. They got Northside and South Hills, which are two games they should win. But the big ones is the last week of the season against Chisholm Trail, which is the upstart team as well. Chisholm Trail 6-2 and 4-2 in that particular district
yeah,
this year as well. These two teams historically have not been very good in the
Yeah.
most recent years. I don't think Saginaw's ever made the playoffs. They will make the playoffs this year.
Wow.
But I wanted to give a shout out. That's a team in far west DFW that a lot of
It
people
is
don't
good.
talk about. The Saginaw Rough Riders actually having a great season this year, and
Yeah.
I wanted to shout those guys out. And I will get some eyes on that and start bringing you some guys from that here in the next couple of weeks. Before the season ends, we'll definitely give you some guys from the Saginaw Rough Riders. Hadn't had a chance to get over there, but definitely a team to watch as the playoffs get ready to start here in about 3 or 4 weeks. But I mean, that's
Yeah.
if you don't have anything else, Drew, man, that's all we got for you today. Shout out to Ben Spicer, who'll be back with us next week, and we might have a special guest next week that'll drop by at the platform Under the Lights podcast. Follow us, click, like, and subscribe. Also follow the rundown as well.
Yeah.
Listen, my guys dropping great content every week. This week's episode went up. I had a chance to watch it as well.
Yeah.
Look for big things coming from the rundown and the platform Under the Lights podcast. Follow us on the platform dr.com, the website as well. We'll be dropping stuff this week to let you know when those lists come out as well, man. For my guy Drew, I am Mark Henry
Yeah.
and Ben Spicer. We out.
Peace. Peace, brother.